All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are going into our game number 2 draft here between Aster and, of course, Na'Vi. But before we head into the draft, John X Fire, Na'Vi having a bit of a rough affair for game number 1. Do you want to go over where you think things went wrong here for Na'Vi and what you'd like to see them switch up here against Aster for game 2?
I think the main issue for Na'Vi is that they managed to hit their timings, they hit their level 6 on the supports, to get a really nice blink timing on Lace, but they don't manage to find the big targets they want. I don't know if that was really more on Na'Vi or on Aster playing well, because let's face it, Aster did manage to break up the ganks really nicely. They managed to force the target choice for Na'Vi to be on their supports, on Boboka, on Picho more. Just sacrificing that blink timing on their own Tiny to ensure their Faceless Void would get the farm necessary to carry the game on. I think for Na'Vi, they might have to take a look back at the draft. They went all in on early aggression. And I think the one issue as well that came out is they didn't necessarily win their lanes. Like V-Tune, they went with that Razor plus Clockwork lane we talked about. They didn't manage to really get aggressive. The Tiny was a great response from Boboka, just tossing back every time they wanted to be aggressive. You need much more lane dominant heroes, as you like to point out, Mike. And if you will go for that pickoff game, I think you're going to want a little bit of scaling. Like, you can't just afford to go all in and single target control. As we saw from Aster, they had so much team fight that even if you lose the puck first, it doesn't matter. You have Chrono, you have the Golem drop, you have a Visage running around with the familiar stuns. You had enough to compensate.
You did, and I think it goes back to the drafts especially, right? Because we saw Aster choose the Void later on in the drafting phase, and I think that was a very, very clever pick, because we saw every team find. Like, they managed to find Ori, but they've blown everything to be able to pick off this mid puck. And then eventually Monet just finds a really nice angle for a big Chrono and then just, finishes off the team fight that way. So a lot of things happen in game 1. Na'Vi, it did feel like they're in a very powerful position at one stage, especially throughout the early to mid game, but just not able to escalate and really just take advantage of the farm that they did have and the net worth advantages that they found themselves with. But nevertheless, you have game number 2. There's still an opportunity here for Na'Vi to try and tie out the series. But for Aster, again, completely undefeated so far throughout the group stage of the Arlington Major. And I'm sure they do intend on maintaining that undefeated streak going into day number 2. As we should be heading to a draft rather soon, but we are waiting a little bit for this game to get started. Jonathan, anything else? Like, is there anything in particular you really liked what Aster was doing during that game 1?
I think they just had really good discipline to stay calm, to play at the back, literally at the back of Monet. We saw them grouping around the Faceless Void to ensure that no gank angles were coming in with the smokes, especially around that top tier 1, right in that lane where you tend to get ganked as a plus 1 while farming. They made sure he was protected the entire time. Like, they had such great discipline. They were willing to sacrifice even Boboka's timing on the Blink Tiny. And we talk about that Tiny 4. If your Blink is stalled out, it feels like you don't have impact. Didn't matter for Boboka. He knew they were playing for a later point in the game. He knew they were going to look to be aggressive anyway. So he was much more willing to just sacrifice his farm for the rest of the course to build up. And I think that it's that kind of discipline. It's that kind of coordination in the understanding of Dota you have as a team. Because that was all the units play. That was all just like strategic calls coming out from Aster, and it paid off in the end. And I think that's something, again, Na'Vi's going to have to watch out for, because they've been looking pretty damn good the past few days. As you mentioned there, Mike, going undefeated kind of lines them up for a fairly good shot to kind of end up in the top 4 for that upper bracket start.
It's nothing too unusual for Aster. Like, we said this during game 1, and they tend to always dominate the group stage during these international events. And once you get to the playoffs, things do tend to change quite a bit. But until then, Aster, they do look like absolute gods going through the group stage. So let's see if they can keep it up, of course. Again, it was just fantastic play for game number 1. Nothing to really fault there with the drafting, or really just the play style. They always knew that they had a draft they believed in. They knew they can go into the late game. They knew they were going to be stronger, and they just played their own strategy. I think that's the big difference as well. And I think this is what Na'Vi need to be very cautious of going into this game 2 draft, is you don't really want to focus too much on what Aster's doing. I think you've got to focus on what you're doing as a team. Sure, you want to get some decent drafts or decent counters to be against what Aster's drafting, but you've got to respect the fact that they've already got a strategy they're going to believe in no matter what you pick. You've got to go with something you believe in. And it did feel like, especially midway through the draft, it did feel like Na'Vi was kind of responding to what Aster was doing rather than kind of doing what they needed to do, especially with all the counters being picked towards Ori on that puck, right? Like the Skywrath and whatever else, the Void Spirit, and ultimately it just felt like they got trapped in the end. They just didn't have the answers for Monet. We saw XXS so many times in the Visage just doing whatever the hell he wanted during these team fights, and he just knew they couldn't kill him. And if they were going to kill him, John, they'd have to commit everything to make sure that happened. You just can't.
Yeah, it takes way too many resources from your toolkit to kind of get that done. I think, to be fair to Na'Vi, I don't think they were going all in on just countering the side of Aster. That was still very specific to their playstyle, right? They were looking to play aggressive. They were looking to just run around, get this early fights going for themselves. And we'll see if they change a playstyle as we do have the draft ready to unfold.
Radiant team.
So they're going to stay the same. Dawnbreaker being banned out. Razor banned out by Na'Vi. So the Winter Wyvern's in play here, Mike, if neither side bans it. Io is still in the pool. Marcy is still in the pool as well. Chen's in the pool. All of these sustained heroes are there. Even the Dazzle's there. So we're seeing a little bit more of those pause 5 slide through, and both teams kind of love that sustain here.
10 seconds remaining.
No surprises so far with these bans. It's a matter of whether you want to get rid of that Wyvern you just mentioned. And now it's going to be the Marcy being removed by Aster, and there's your Wyvern ban out from Natus Vincere. You definitely don't want to give that over to Aster if you can avoid it. Surprise, surprise, though, they go right back into the Baboka Tiny. And I dare say they could just go back into the Warlock as well, John. Again, it's just such a strong combination to have. We saw how comfortable Aster felt with having that pos 5 Warlock. It's constantly healing up Monet and keeping him healthy down at the bot lane, and it's a great combo. Unless Na'Vi are going to take it right now, I think Aster could easily just take a second pick Warlock.
Yeah, there's really not much that counteracts it. You get to have a really safe lane for Monet in the end, so I wouldn't mind that back for Picho if he does want to play it once more. I mean, as a pause 5 player, Warlock's not the most engaging, but you do what you can to win your games here, Mike. Na'Vi back into clockwork themselves, and they do take the puck on their side. So maybe now that Warlock pick doesn't sound as hot, Tiny with a Warlock, your lockdown for puck is fairly lacking. I mean, you don't want to do what Na'Vi did, as you called out, right? Like going all in just to counter one pick and go away from your playstyle, deviating from what you want to do in game. At the same time, you do have to have something to hold the puck down. You could still shift the Tiny onto Ori and give Baboka something else to give you that control for the puck, but that might be what Na'Vi wants to force out here anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aster for now, they're going to have a bit of a think. Maybe just wondering how they're going to deal with this puck this game here against Na'Vi, and they won't go for that, instant kind of pick up here for their second pick. They'll have a think about it. Maybe they go back for the Skyrath themselves here. Right, again, just that Ancient Seal just so powerful against a hero like Puck, and I saw it plenty of times, Na'Vi executing very well against Ori last game around. Sadly, that wasn't quite enough to pull off the victory for them, but it certainly was a very, very good use case here against the Puck. Instead, though, Aster, they're going to go into the Enigma, one of their favorites, and why the hell not just pick it up before it does get banned out? They'll have it.
Yeah, it's not the most straightforward Enigma game, at the same time, not the toughest. I mean, you have Hookshot that's always going to be effective at stopping Black Hole. You have a decent enough creep player on the puck as well. But you can block the clockwork away from just running you down with Battery Assault with the Eidolon, so can still work out pretty nicely in lane. You have some flex here for Aster if they do want to hand that over to XXS, or if they'd want it as maybe a greedy sport. I don't think that fits into what Aster would want to do, though. So more than likely, we're just going to see XXS pick that up. But again, fairly open. If Pichu wants to play it on the 5, it can work. It's just, it doesn't give Monet as great of a lane. Right? It's not a healing hero. It's not going to be able to play with these heavy farming cores. It's fairly greedy as a 5, unless you can kind of get away with jungle farming. So I'm keen to see what Na'Vi's read of it is. Are they going to invest? Are they going to repeat that mistake they made in Game 1's draft here, Mike, where they see the Enigma, they feel like, all right, we're going to need counters. We're going to line up for the Rubik pickup. We're going to line up for stuff that just stuns him true BKB and has that additional control. I don't think you want to go that far in. Clockwork alone seems like it's a fairly good answer with a hook shot.
It certainly is. The final bans to come out here between Aster and Natus Vincere. It's one of those things, right? Like, you did have the Clockwork first pick here from Na'Vi, and they still chose Enigma. Like, it may just be... We've seen this constantly from Enigma players as well. It's just not about throwing out Black Hole during these team fights, but rather just dominating lanes with Eidolons. We see it all the time, and it's just so hard to try and lane against this Enigma hero. Just being able to deny off so many creeps with those Eidolons, and you're just generally never going to see a range creep in your life as the enemy pos 1. It's just never going to happen against a good Enigma player that is, and Aster certainly have one. Still Na'Vi, final ban for them before we can continue with this draft. Bit of a mixed bag here with these bans, getting rid of the mid Void and the pos 1 Jug. Maybe just another mid pick to be banned out here from Na'Vi. I mean, is there anything in particular you don't want to play against if you are this puck, John? Like, Void Spirit, obviously one of the better ones, but any other heroes that kind of come to mind that you just really don't enjoy playing against if you are a puck?
And they've already banned out the Kunkka on Aster's end, so you don't have to worry about wasting a ban on that for Na'Vi. The Quap isn't really a great solution to the puck, I don't feel like. You might be able to go for something quirky on Aster if they want to. Pottle mid could be something that comes out. Works well enough up against the puck. Na'Vi will go with the IO, so they do manage to pick up one of their sustain heroes here for solo. They've got a lot of mobility now on hand. Hookshot to initiate, relocate on hand as well. They can go for multiple options for Vichun. The CK looks pretty damn good here for Vichun to play with. We've seen him play it multiple times before as well. So you could go back to the classic IO CK and just run around and start looking for those kills. I am wondering what Aster will want. Like, they see IO Clockwork, they see the support duos. They should know the IO combinations that could come out. If not CK, then maybe something like Gyrocopter could be an option. Sven is an option that occasionally you see from certain teams. I believe that is mainly Spirit, but could be one way to go as well. So I'm wondering how Aster adapts with what they have. Because Tiny Enigma don't really stop the IO. They go with a TA. And that could be our mid for Ori. That matches up fairly well against the puck. It's not the worst thing in the world. Level 1 to 2 is not great. Level 3 feels a little bit better, and you can just play that farming for the most part.
I do like the TA mid against the puck. You did want to go down that route. Nothing wrong with that. Then Aster, they're not going to reveal exactly where the TA is going for now. They'll go for a Disruptor pickup. One of the better heroes against heroes like the IO and the puck, but there's your Gyrocopter now coming out from Na'Vi, so really going back to that old school combination of the IO Gyro. And you and I, we've had the pleasure of casting Na'Vi quite a few times, John, and it always feels like when the back's against the wall, this is something they want to go back to.
Radiant team
do I have faith in it, and do you have faith in it, John? That's to be answered. I personally don't.
Team Aster's
you know what?
ban.
I think if you go for a Gyrocopter magic buildup, it could be nice. I'm not kidding. Like, you have spell amplification coming out from the IO. You go for a Kaya Veil. It's actually pretty devastating once you get your shards up. So it makes short work of TA's Refraction. She's not going to have a fast BKB, or at least, not a first item BKB for sure. Second item BKB is also a bit awkward. Third item BKB is more than likely what we'll see after a Blink Dragonlance, if you want to go that way. And you can still kind of itemize beyond that. BKBs will tick down. You can play around that as a Gyrocopter. That could be one way. I think if you go for the physical build-up, it does feel a little bit slow, and your rotations in on the Gyrocopter, you're still going to wait for your first item, right? You tend to wait for the Ags or the Maelstrom on the Jar before you want to relocate. And with a Maelstrom, it doesn't feel adequate. You usually see the relocates come out once the Ags is up. So that is still time for Aster to build up on their own TA. What I am a bit worried about for Aster is, you mentioned old school. Going back to the Disruptor here, you have good combinations coming out. As you mentioned, it's great to get the relocates effectiveness away, so you can just pull them out when they do try to get the global gank in, pull them back when they try to retreat. Can be nice in that aspect. But the one thing with the Disruptor as well, it's like, if it does get caught out and you do have the mobile heroes here from Na'Vi to catch that hero out, it doesn't contribute much, right? Like, it's easy enough for a Clockwork to hook shot in, battery assault, and buy enough time for the puck to come on top, or the IO relocate to come on top and just kill off the disruptor. Suddenly you don't have Static Storm, or he dropped Static Storm before dying, and he's not going to be able to buy back for a better re-engage. So that's the one thing with the disruptor that can always feel a little bit awkward. When you play it from behind, it doesn't feel like the most impactful.
Radiant team pick.
Last pick up, Aster. Ooh, they're gonna go into the Night Stalker. All right, so it should be the POS 1 TA, maybe the POS 2 Tiny, and the POS 3 Night Stalker coming out. Could be a bit of a mix though. Maybe POS 1 Night Stalker.
I think he would run. I mean, you could run mid Tiny.
remaining.
Mid Tiny versus Puck isn't too bad, but I think you are
5
still going to stick to
seconds remaining.
Baboka Tiny.
You could run POS 1 Night Stalker and let the POS 2 TA just carry you, right?
Yeah. Like that's the better play. Like, keep Baboka on the Tiny, run the pause one Night Stalker. TA versus Puck matchup again, fairly manageable. I am keen to see what Na'Vi wants to do in the offlane. Like, they see the Night Stalker. It's not the most domineering hero in that lane, and they go for the Venge. I like Venge. I don't know if I really like it in this game.
It's reactionary.
It's a great way of saving out from the Night Stalker silence. They will go with the Ori Tiny and Baboka Enigma, all right? So just keeping it standard, Moneo and TA. Nothing too crazy. I was kind of excited to see the POS 1 Night Stalker, but they play it safe here on Aster. The Venge off, like, it can be great, but my issue is you don't have a big playmaker on Na'Vi. You have the Puck. You have Dream Coil, Swap, Break. And that is it. Like, Venge will have to wait for Ag's build up, and really Ag Shard is when the Venge shines. And even then, it's real shining moments like Ag Shard level 25 when you pierce spell immunity. So that's a long ways off. Once BKBs are up, I think just having a Gyro and Venge who will need Ags to be effective already cuts your timing by a huge amount. And Aster, it doesn't look like they have a lineup that actually wants to play slow. They have a lineup that will actually want to play relatively quick, especially if Na'Vi will wait for those buildups here.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup here between these two teams. John, is there a preferred draft from your end of things between these two?
Yeah, I'd lean towards Aster. Like, if you look at the components of the draft, like, it's not the easiest Enigma game. You've got Swap, you've got Hookshot, but it's also a pause for Enigma. It's not like Baboka's going to be gunning for the big black holes anyway. He's more than likely just going for the standard Wraith Pack build up, and mitigate some damage, deny creeps, help build up that lane for XXS. And I just think Na'Vi went in a bit of the opposite direction. Like, this lineup does have an avenue for aggression, but it doesn't feel as strong as their aggression from game 1. So Na'Vi is actually going for a slightly slower game. And I think if you try to play a slightly slower game against Aster, they're the ones who will look to kick up a gear. You don't need too much farm on a TA in this game. You definitely don't need too much farm on your Night Stalker to be effective in Ori. As long as he gets a decent blink timing from his mid matchup, can set up for the team. So I'm feeling Aster's early to mid game a lot more, and I think if they do secure that early to mid game, it's pretty hard for Navi's lineup to bounce back in on a deficit.
I'd agree with you on that as well. It's very, very tough, and I can appreciate why Na'Vi go for the last pick Venge in this draft as well, because that Night Stalker pick was a very strong pick from Aster. It just covers so many bases, right? Like, you've got a great way of catching the IO, great way of catching the Puck. Even the Gyrocopter's going to struggle against that Night Stalker later on, and more so just the IO Puck. They're just not going to have a good time, so you need a way to get them out of there. But again, it just feels very reactionary, and it feels like you really are putting all the eggs in the IO Gyro basket. Like, Vichun has to really carry this game for his team. It is practically just a 4 protect 1 kind of draft here from Na'Vi, and if Vichun can't make the carry happen, it's just going to fall apart.
Yeah, and sad to say, Mike, Vichun is just going for the standard Maelstrom, but look, he's not going to experiment with the Magic Jar, but I do still want to see Magic something with an IO down the line.
Maelstrom is magic damage, John.
Yeah, but it's not as dank as Rocket Barrage missiles with a Veil. You know, it's not the same concept, Mike. It's not as fun.
Well, I'm sorry, John. Well, maybe one day we'll get to see it. You never know, John. I mean, the other damn supports could pick one of those things up, couldn't they? You know?
True.
Veil, that's not a POS 1 item, John. It's these damn supports that need to pick it up. It's their fault.
Would you? I'm trying to imagine what would you do if you saw, say, your Clockwork build up Veil. I don't think you'd be too happy. So probably not happening here, Mike. As we do take a
Doesn't sound that bad.
Would you build it? I would instantly report you, mind you, if you would do that. No, Mikey.
You're giving me ideas, John. You're giving me ideas. I'm not going to lie to you. I might try it just to see if it actually works. Well, bot lane, a few high fives going out, but top lane, Solo's already copping it so much on the clock. It's one of the things, John, with Disruptor. It may not be a popular hero right now in the meta, but lane-wise, it is very dominant.
Yeah, you just come in with 3 mangoes, you feel great, spam out your spell. It's not much Clockwork can do to stop that. Even Avenge can't do much to stop that. And as a Clockwork into TA, it's actually not the comfiest time, because you want to harass with Battery Assault. Monet does have that level 1 melt, so if you do come up and try to harass, you cop even more damage with the Minus Armor there.
What is that sticker? The good old Ramsey's just showed up here, my god. What a sticker.
Yep, it's a beautiful one. It does get you lolling out there. It's still the mid lane matchup as well, Mike. Ori and no one on the Tiny and Puck. We've seen this matchup multiple times. It tends to go fairly even. I'd say the aggression is much better on the Tiny if he finds a good angle for Avalanche Toss, but no one should be able to manage his lane well enough that it's not an issue, although you have to watch when the Tiny does run up. His right clicks are obnoxious for some reason.
They are. A lot of damage there from that Tiny. Of course, this top lane, they have jumped in on the Disruptor. Solo just trying for the last hit, and in fact, Lace gets it. Nice pick up there from Na'Vi top lane, and they will be able to secure first blood for a second game in a row. Really catching out that Disruptor, and I suppose that is one thing. You don't have the glimpse up, which he does not. You were never going to be able to get away from that Clockwork.
Yeah, it can be a little bit dicey to try and deal with that. Monet is also not the most durable here. It doesn't have the point in the refraction, although Clockwork can kind of rip through that. An important kill for Na'Vi to find is, again, their lineup kind of has some awkward tempo coming out here, so getting as much as they can out of lanes helps to offset that just a little bit and, you know, accelerate that timing into Ags or Lace. And of course, the level 6 for Solo can be important there as well. So we'll see how much more Monet can get. He's still farming up well. I think you're more than happy to sacrifice the Disruptor for your TA to keep farming there.
Looking at V-Tune here on the Gyrocopter. He might have a go here on XXS. The missile is going to land, and it's going to be quite a bit of harassment to fly out onto the Night Stalker. V-Tune not going to dive too deep for this, though, but Boka needs to be very cautious with his own HP pool, as well, even Solo off the top lane falling quite low himself. A lot of heroes dropping quite low on the map, Jonathan, but no second kill coming out quite yet between these two teams. It does feel like Na'Vi, though, in a prime position to keep up with the aggression.
Yeah, they're getting much stronger lanes coming out here. They've got the standard Gyro IO. The damage output is great. The sustain is there, but look, you can't do too much on the Enigma, which is the shortcoming of this draft from Aster. We talked about the contribution of that Enigma forward. It's really not much beyond just demonic conversion, and that's not something V-Tune minds all too much of the flat cannon up anyway. He can choose to farm that up for himself. So we'll see what avenue Aster finds. Thing ran out, or we're gonna have to play off the back, or maybe play around the first nighttime with the Dark Ascension from XXS. That could be when they start to turn things around, but I just feel like they're gonna need to take a beat, especially on their Enigma. It's gonna take a long time for him to be helpful.
Solo catching out the Disruptor once again and secures another kill. Well, this is why you really want that glimpse at level 2 against the Clockwork, and Solo, he's giving the tips over. He knows. It's just one of these things. You don't get the glimpse up, Solo's gonna have a great side.
Yeah, you can just run down as a Clockwork. Solo already having some great presence here. Very close to his strengths, levels. He's given a lot of room out to Lace, prioritizing that Revenge. Kind of kick it up a notch. And all the lanes for Na'Vi again are just shaping up well, except for mid. Aster is still getting a better time there on Ori, as to be somewhat expected in the matchup. Slightly Tiny favorite nowadays, so we tend to see it unfold. I think for Aster, they've just got to be patient. Like, they do have a strong mid-game timing, but it takes a little bit to get into that point there.
Monet, it's a much bigger target if they can get it. Solo doing a pretty darn good job with the battery assault charges here as Monet getting trapped up in the cogs now, and he might just go down. Cogs pushback is there, but Solo still going. Just one more hit would do it, and they found it. Oh, the wave of terror damage just enough here from Lace. Massive kill here for Na'Vi, and Yeah, a bit of a rough time here for Monet now.
And it goes back to a little bit of that point we had in the draft era, Mike, where when you have a disruptor and starts falling behind it, it just doesn't feel like it does enough to help you salvage anything. Like this laning situation for Monet, starting to get out of hand, is severely behind in comparison to Vichun. He's going to have to sit in that jungle to farm. And with a clockwork, you're going to be able to scout around really well.
He's going to find sweet and strong, perhaps, though a nice tether away, but not quite nice enough. Ori, just to secure the kill there on the tiny with Baboka. It is just an IO kill, to be fair. I mean, that's a mid-tiny rotating over to make that happen, and you would have really preferred the gyrocopter, but they won't be able to find an angle onto him. Right back to the mid lane here, Ori. Speaking of the mid lane, no one. He's going to start rotating up towards the top lane now. See if he can find Monet a second time as solo. Just trying to bait them forward here on the clockwork, but here comes no one. Just have that nice invis rune to play with, as they don't have any sentry wards down. But never mind, they do. They should see him. Go solo for a quick D ward out, and with that Aster, going to be just fine.
They dodge out, but you can see Navi again taking the initiative early on, playing around with her lineup, especially with their supports. I think that's where it's really been getting aggressive, mainly from Solo and from Lace. The offlane's just been their key launching point. They are getting a lot of value out of Vichun. He's going to have great timing into the Maelstrom. For Aster, again, it's just patience. They need level 6s up. They might catch more.
They may. Disruptor once again being hunted down here as Lace and Solo kind of get the foot off the pedal here, as they should find another. The Nick build down, but it's just not going to help the cause, because Solo eventually just going to find him and another kill over to the Vengeful Spirit. Considering how great of a laning stage Lace has had, he's going to have a very nice Axe timing, I believe.
Should line up fairly nicely here for Venge. Power Treads, double rate band already up. So it has decent enough presence early on here as well, and just right clicks and durability. And that can give you a lot more to play with.
He's fine, Monet. Unable to finish off the kill here on the TA, and bot lane now. Vichun just standing his ground here against XXS. Doesn't seem to care whatsoever that it's nighttime. He has an IO behind him. He's really got nothing to be afraid about. Just keeps going with the right clicks and is confident he can remain and sustain with Sweet and Strong. Aster, once again, John, during this laning stage, just very slow play. They aren't interested in getting too aggressive. They just want to survive through it and secure their CS. And now they're doing a decent enough job of it, but Na'Vi, they are slowly creeping ahead. Just 1k net worth lead the way of the Radiant.
Bouncing between 1k and less than 1k overall for Na'Vi. They are, again, still starting to hit their spikes a little bit earlier. Level 6s are creeping up a lot faster for the Na'Vi support. Solo, just one level away. Already 5 in the clockwork. Shows up mid. Starts to get some vision down. Aster just, again, going into the jungle. They've gotten a lot of room for Monet in that jungle. And they haven't been able to contest till now. They will run up, get some D-wards off, although.
A Dark Ascension popped. They find the gyrocopter and the tree line, but everyone just kind of TP'd out, including the IO. So they get really nothing out of it, but they do kind of confirm that nobody's around, so they can secure this bottom tier 1 tower a bit earlier than you'd expect. Problem is, mid lane is being forced in by an RV, and this is a great trade for the tier 1 mid tower is much more valuable than the bot tier 1, and RV, they'll get away with this for free.
Dire's middle tower has fallen.
Aster just more than willing to give the objectives away. I think they just understand. Navi's kind of trying to replicate game 1 early game. Just trying to play fast, quick. They might find more, but they don't commit for lays.
Solo is very happy to just kind of zone them out with the clockwork. Very confident he will not die right now, and with that, Aster again, just not too focused right now on trying to secure kills. You do have a TA after all, so you are looking to kind of snowball and gain a net worth advantage here for Monet, as they are going to find Solo, but you'll get the cogs off and try to make a walk out. They do have the glimpse back if necessary here onto Solo, and they will commit it eventually back into Monet. Solo, no cogs to use, so he will go down. Nice little pick up there for the TA, and he just felt like he desperately needed, as he has been falling a little bit too far behind in net worth. Allow Monet to catch up a little bit more effectively.
Not the biggest kill in the world, but still, take what you can get when you're slightly behind. Freebie for Monet always feels great. And That does still allow Aster to keep control on their top jungle. Like, these forays of solo haven't amounted to much. Even with the tier 1 falling, as long as Aster allows Monet to farm that area, it's not the biggest. It doesn't feel like you've lost anything because he's still farming safely. So you don't mind state of game right now. Lead goes slightly the way of Aster. It's a really even game so far, Mike. If you look at that net worth graph, pretty much all the cores between 4.2 to 4.8. So only a 600 gold swing from top to bottom on the core stack. And Vichun is actually bottom, although
Hookshot is there onto the Night Stalker. Solo, very, very nice initiation, and that'll be a very easy kill here for Vichun. Off to a great start is Na'Vi, but top lane, another jump in. Lace now in a bit of danger and might just drop as well. He's actually quite a tanky Vengeful Spirit, trying to make a run for it, but it's not going to be good enough. So a bit of an even trade across the map. I think it was actually more worthwhile for Aster considering how valuable the Venge was. And suddenly Monet is top of the net worth board.
he's building up on that TA. Again, the lead between these cores are very thin. So a single kill can kind of knock that off immediately in a different direction. Aster is starting to go for the smoke play with Ori up. They do have that blink up in Tiny, so they want to make some plays with it. They've got level 6 up on PGL as well. The Static Storm is ready. They've managed to find the angle. Even the Dark Ascension is set to go. So they've got... They just need to find the angle.
Jump in. They've got the puck now. Arthur's there. Do they have enough damage though? The Fairy Fire might just buy enough time, but not quite. That B-tune. That's one thing you've got to remember, John. You are up against a Disruptor. You're going to relocate. Not going to be too effective as V-tune does get caught out with the glimpse, but it won't matter. It just means that Na'Vi can't follow up and counter-initiate. Aster, they get a great kill for themselves and disengage very effectively.
Yep. Just go back, get farming up on Monet, left alone up top. No one on Na'Vi manages to make use of that space. They line up with Solo though. Hookshot still at the ready. Lace does have everything on hand as well, but it's fairly deep dive now, and Aster is just managing to weave in and out well. They get aggressive, they buy space for Monet, they pull back before Na'Vi can respond, and they just rinse and repeat. They don't have massive cooldowns to wait for. Static Storm's not that long. You're not really factoring in the black hole here as well. You just kind of play with your Tiny for the most part and run and gun.
That you do, John. That you do. Na'Vi, they'll focus on the top tier 1 tower now as Aster just roaming comfortably across the map. They do not give a crap about that top tier 1 whatsoever. Sweet and strong. They get caught here. They have the glimpse out. Observer Ward placed down to try and get the vision. Heads up play from Sweet and Strong, going into the tree line and not giving the opening over. Very, very smart from Sweet and Strong.
Yep, dodges out. Wastes a little bit of that time from Aster, and Na'Vi is starting to use the map space fairly well. Again, neither side still getting any major lead despite the back and forth, despite this break and farm. Both sides are managing to keep up pace with each other quite nicely here, Mike. And that just builds up the tension. At some point, something's got to give. And Aster's looking for that smoke up top, though.
XXS has been caught. Follow-up hookshot is there, and even the relocate just to make sure they secure the kill. In fact, they want to try and move into that top tier 2 tower, but Solo needs to back off. Meanwhile, Dreamclaw has been committed and has found 2 supports, or at least 2, 1 support, 1 mid laner. Is no one. Oh, great Static Storm out into the black hole. Oh boy, they go a bit too far here. Avalanche is out to disengage for Aster, and they've seen enough. They've got enough as well. They'll be happy with that trade. So close yet so far for Na'Vi.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
That's some great patience out from Boca. He sees that perfect Static Storm drop from Picho right before dying and manages to follow up with probably your best black hole you could hope for. Because again, there's so many ways to cancel it in this game. He gets the heroes he needs to, and they just clean up. They trade 2 cores from Na'Vi for a core and support on Asterson. You're more than happy with that trade. Monet is still farming up like a madman. He's not necessary for these fights. Whereas in comparison, Na'Vi has to drag in V-Tune very early because he has a lot of magic damage. He's a decent chunk of physical damage. They can't burst heroes down without that gyro, so they're always running the risk of V-Tune being too far forward and cutting him off from farm. He's just not able to stay around that jungle to play the lanes as much because, well, he's got to join his team fights here.
Solo, spotted there by Ori, I believe, is haze strewn up, so we'll go for a bit of a chase for the clockwork. Solo to be a little bit too slippery here on the clock. Just trying to back himself out. Ori unwilling to go too deep naturally as the Tiny. Still 7-6 with a 2k advantage for Aster. You've got to give props though. I mean, V-Tune, he's still keeping up in farm and doing a great job on the gyrocopter. It's just a matter of when Aster hit their timings, they are going to start rushing Na'Vi. And I just question whether they're going to be able to put up with the TA damage.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your ability at least coming out with the IO, but it can just knock the IO in the head. And you from
eventually does get caught up trying to go for those D wards, John. And unfortunate for him as they now know exactly where the sentry wards are. Still, I mean, 7-7, a very even match, but again, it just feels like Aster, they're just playing the slow game, just waiting for their timings. They just don't seem worried whatsoever.
Yeah, they've got confidence in their scaling. I think the issue for Na'Vi is they're going to be able to sustain through some of that TA damage, but the eye is just going to melt. So you're going to need something like a Ghost Scepter up early here, and you don't quite have that queued up just yet. You will get your Ags sooner rather than later on Lace, so you're going to be able to commit with your Venge, just kind of swap in, get a stun, die, stun again, swap again if necessary. Always having that tool to stop the threat of the Wokus Black Hole, which is infrequent. But Na'Vi, I don't know what time you're really looking for. It doesn't feel like there's anything major to watch out for. And Aster, with the blinks they have early on, they're just going to go for the smoke plays non-stop.
The thing is, John, if they win this team fight, they're going straight for Roshan. They've got the Deso up on the TA, so they've got plenty of damage for it. You go for that mid-tier 1 tower and go straight into the Roshan pit after. Or you just rush Roshan right now. Aster, they don't find the team fight they want, but they know that Na'Vi are not in position to try and fight Roshan here. They'll have to make their way over. And Aster, they'll just get started. Look how fast this thing goes down. No chance of survival here for the Roshan as Na'Vi trying to make their way over in time, but it's just too late. They can't make it. They'll smoke up. Roshan's already gone. They can still force the team fight though if they really want to. I think it's the greatest idea here for Na'Vi. They'll just hold the triangle instead.
Just keep getting that build up. V-Tune about to have his Ags now. All the gold on hand, so a bit of a spike here for the Gyrocopter. Gonna feel a lot better in the middle of these fights as well. Still under smoke here for Lade. No.
In, Ori is there onto V-Tune with a very nice toss back. Getting him away from that gyro, or rather Io, but there's a relocate. Make sure V-Tune gets out of there, and he's going to be just fine as Ori. Now caught out by no one. They're trying to go for the counter initiation, and they will. Solo is there. The Grimstack is out as well. Now the Puck in trouble as XXS will chase him down, but here comes V-Tune once again on the gyrocopter. The cavalry is back. They don't find anyone quite yet. XXS will heal himself up with the shards. RV trying to find himself the target, but everyone's just leaving the area and Solo. Oh, he's barely going to catch Corey out, but a massive static storm now from our Disruptor, holding everyone down, but it won't matter. They still find the two. RV able to make the team fight work regardless. And Aster, well, they try to disengage, but they don't all make it out.
It's a massive win coming out for Na'Vi. Managed to get the bailout there with the IO. They clump up into that position and just smash onto Aster, who I wouldn't say they overcommit too hard, but probably not expect that much of a reaction out. Maybe expecting to get that first play on the clock for a lot faster there as well. Didn't quite come out the way they wanted to. They are still buying out space for Monet. Build-up is there for the TA, but the Gyrocopter is beefy. Like, the Ags timing again is the key part of this build-up. Satanic is going to come through next. It's going to be very sustainable in the front line. He shouldn't be immediately bursted unless he can absolutely chain stun him perfectly here, which is easier said than done. Na'Vi, off the back of those plays, and go for their own smoke play now.
We go, RV, they might put XXS. Solo, he's got the hook shot to set up, but no one. He'll be the one to commit the Dream Coil to try and set this team fight up. Is the relocate even going to be there from Na'Vi? No messing around, they commit all the ways. In fact, they found Monet. They've got the TA held down, and they'll take it down. That'll be the first line. Boca wants to go for the black hole, but he's down. He did not catch Lace out in it. So Aster, a very rushed kind of team fight attempt, and Na'Vi, they take full advantage.
That was rough from Aster, forcing the issue way too hard. Navi just finding a great angle to come in with that smoke, picks him off one by one really well, and they just couldn't find the angle. And we can take a look at it in the replay, as that was probably one of the best fights for Navi this match. Just getting to relocate on top, catching out that Night Stalker before he could do anything to help out the team, and they still run up. Like, Monet still angles in. He doesn't have BKB, he has no protection for his secondary life. It just doesn't do anything.
I'm just not sure what that was about. Like, Monet, he just run right up the staircase, and sure, you've got the double life, but it's only you and Baboka there. Like, it's not going to be that easy to land the black hole without a blink up. Just a very rushed attempt from Aster, and it's not something we see too often from them, but they've got to be very cautious of that. Na'Vi now kind of breaking the net worth gap that was there, and well, suddenly Vichun, he is well and truly ahead on the gyrocopter. A very concerning sign now for Team Aster.
He's going to have Satanic up to sustain the eye he's giving him. Bursting through Vichun is getting a little bit tough for the TA to do by herself. You're going to want Scotty perhaps at some point, but that's still a million miles away here for Monet to kind of save into. And Aster, it feels like they need a little bit more spell immunity on hand.
Hold on. Onto the Tiny they go. Ori, he's a big target if they can find it. Nice clips away back on the Vichun though. He won't be used with this team fight, but Ori still trapped up, still completely controlled up. They will drop the Static Storm, but they've already lost that mid-Tiny. They might just lose a bit more now. Aster will get everyone else out of there. If you lost probably the biggest target you can ask for right now, and Na'Vi, they'll take full advantage once again. Right into the mid-T2 tower they go. Aster, they just have no way of stopping them.
No, they're lacking good ways to come in. Outside of Exodus coming in with his blink, he needs his own BKB to really be protected from the heroes that are outside of his crippling fear. Still some time away till he gets his full BKB up. And I mean, you have that BKB on Monet, but now you don't have Aegis. Like, he can't afford to just run up, try to get some damage off. The hook shot and the swaps will also throw off the TA despite that BKB as well. But there's still a lot to worry about. Although,
for now, sort of 4-star out there from Solo. So they're still going for a chase, but it feels very desperate here from him. Lace can actually turn around. Winstack is there. Midnight probably dropped as well, but here comes the Dark Ascension. It looks like Na'Vi want to try and force the fight anyway as Monet. He's popped the BKB very early on. This could be detrimental now to Aster as they'll lose Ori. Lace, he may lose that Remnant, but he's still stunning heroes up. Aster, they will disengage in the end, but John, you trade your mid-Tiny for an off-lane Venge. It just doesn't feel worth it.
No, it's definitely not, and they spent a lot of time trying to chase that Venge Remnant out as well, and they don't even find it. So Lace is going to respawn with bonus XP. He's got the presence of his stuns. There's still swaps to play with. You're really happy on Na'Vi with how Aster's trying to play. They're trying to get super aggressive, but their angles in are just not great. I think your issue is your supports have no play. You have a Disruptor and Enigma. And we talked about the Disruptor. If you're not starting fights on his terms, he just drops that Storm and Dice. He's not able to really do much beyond that.
Absolutely not. It just feels like off the back of that one terrible team fight for Aster, and suddenly everything's just kind of fallen apart here for them as Na'Vi. Again, you can't take anything away from this team, John. They've been playing fantastic with this game in number 2 so far. We'll go for that top T2 tower now. Vichun is feeling very, very confident. No chance of dying on this gyro so far. Especially with that Satanic up. The IO right behind him.
Top tower has fallen.
Ian, relocate, back into the dive triangle. Tori again being caught out this time by Solo, and he does get taken down. In fact, Dreamcall was there as well for Boca. He's not going to make it out either. He just has to accept the fact that he is going to die. Na'Vi, they are really playing this Iron Gyrocopter combo very, very well.
They just know when to come in with a relocate with the itemization of Vichun. Now it's very low risk to actually commit, and they just play super aggressive. They go for a bit of a slower start. Once the ball gets rolling, Aster just doesn't have counter. I just don't know what to do with a support hero. You do have the Black Hole Static Storm, and we did see that in a big moment before for Aster, but we haven't seen it since then. It's just so hard to get the angles to get that combination off. And they're just forced to watch their mid-racks fall. So one free set of racks for Na'Vi, 25 minutes in. Roshan, 10 seconds till we see that respawn timer up. Build-up is still coming through from Aster. Manoy is still trying to go into the Daedalus. BKB still being built up by XXS. That spell immunity has to come out for XXS and for Ori. Without that immunity, they're just sitting ducks to all the magic output, to all the control Na'Vi has on hand here.
Oh, absolutely. It's just been such a rough affair. It's like Ori's just getting constantly kited throughout these team fights if he's not initially caught out, and he just doesn't have the chance to move in and get the damage off he needs. In fact, mid lane right now, they could be in danger once again. Base swap is there. Manate, nice quick blink away. He's going to be just fine. Confident play there from Manate to position himself in that way, but always knew with the refraction he could blink away any moment he needed. Na'Vi, there's no Roshan to play for quite yet, so for more kills here onto Aster. Or he shows up mid lane once again. Rocket Flare, Coil is there immediately onto that Tiny. If you do have to disrupt to try and back him up, Mimicape will be out by a bit of time for Ori. And it might just be enough time to allow him to back off as Na'Vi will smoke up and try to back off, and now Eclipse is there. Bijun, he gets caught out. He's the big target, but he's going to Satanic if he needs it. A nice swap out from Lace buying more time for Bijun. The fight continues as Bijun now, he can turn right back around with the line steal. In goes the call down. Lace, he's dropping low, but here comes the cavalry solo. What a great hook shot. They'll go for the black hole out, but it's only caught the vengeful spirit. It's not good enough from Aster. They are falling left, right, and center. They'll commit the buyback on Ori. Trying to go after Sweden strong with the IO. Still not dying. Eventually does go down, but what does it matter? It's a dieback on the Tiny. Another rough team fight here for Aster. They do get a 2-for-2 trade if you count the buyback of the Tiny, John, but it was a pretty rough affair.
Yeah, it took a lot out of him just to find that trade, and this does allow him to stay in the game a little bit longer, but now you're down Black Hole for a fairly long time. You don't have your Tiny. That is actually pretty nice for Na'Vi. With the dieback on Ori, they're going to have respawn on their supports sooner than the Tiny respawn, so they've got the angle for the Rosh, which is up. Rosh number 2 with a shard. Na'Vi can just go for it. There's not much holding them back here, and Aster's gonna have to try to find another awkward angle in to take that away, because if that Aegis comes onto Na'Vi's side, that could be another set of racks. That could be the end game here.
Shot now up. Na'Vi, they'll get started. Not gonna take them too long with the amount of damage Hatred is pumping out with the Gyrocopter. Aster, under the position to try and counter this one. Have to let it go down. He'll pick up everything.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
Aster. It's all about high ground defense now. They certainly still have what it takes to pull off this game victory. Try to make the comeback happen, but it's kind of like, who do you even aim first, right? Like, you need to take down the IO. But even then, Sweden Strong, he's proving to be a little bit too challenging to take down.
It's just super durable on that IO. Already has a casual plate mail up. Instantly bursting down is very, very tough for Aster's lineup, even with a TA. And with the DD up, there's not much to stop Bijun from just running up here.
Slow him down. Midnight Pulse and the Avalanche do quite a bit of damage. Just now the glimpse back is there onto Bijun. He still has the Aegis and the Satanic, so he's perfectly fine to stand his ground. And Strong will keep him very healthy as well with the IO. Still going to try and make this as hard as humanly possible. Black Hole's still 40 seconds away though for Provoker, so you don't have that big scope for the team fight. Not quite yet anyway. RV. Keep going as Ori to jump in. Prospect is there onto Lace, but this is going to be a big call down to come in. Still the Static Storm was also committed, and now the Dream Coil. Going to catch a couple of them. But not enough to make the jump in. RV. They just want the top lane of Barracks. And it seems like that's going to be enough for them. They'll walk right out afterwards. Lace. Is that a glimpse back on the swap on the glimpse back?
No, he swapped first. Swapped first, then he got glimpsed. So he anticipated it. Lace, that he did. So I'm gonna save maybe save Vichu. And I don't know if that was really a play opportunity for Aster, what with the secondary light of Vichu still available, relocate on Sweden Strong. It might not have been a threat. Smoke out from Na'Vi though. This could be a threat. They still have a tier 2 to take care of, but if they find the team fight win here, it could just be tier 4s.
Could be. Smoke is there, but nobody from Aster around that diet triangle right now. They're just going to huddle in the base and hope for the best in this next team fight. At least this time around, you do have that big black hole available from Baboka, but he doesn't really have a great way of initiating in this fight. They're very reliant on just trying to rely on that Aether Remnant to give him that bonus range. Generally speaking, that's not quite enough, John. You don't have the Blink, you don't have the Magic Immunity with the BKB, and with all the stuns that Na'Vi have, it just feels like there's no angle for Baboka. Na'Vi, they know this, and they go once again onto the high ground. How do you stop this as Aster? Could be the last team fight for them. Start chipping away with the Midnight Pulse, but Ijun, very conservative here. Not gonna go too far. Just wait it out. Ori, nice toss back. They might be able to find the first line on the gyrocopter. Ijun dropping low and does go down. That's one line. Can you get it the second time? No one. Will make the jump in, but backs right back off. There's a swamp out. Ijun still finding out the stuns fly in. A big static storm, but really finding no one as Ijun. He does go down. Now the black hole out. Baboka, he'll catch two of them. And Aster somehow taking the team fight, wiping out Na'Vi. That's an ultra kill for Monet. They'd love a rampage if they can find it. Sweden Strong, he's been caught out. The glimpse back and look at this, John. Look at the teamwork. No wait for the rampage for Monet. How does that happen, Jonathan? How do they make that team fight work?
It's just the toss back, drag that core away from his teammates, and well, the fights get really ridiculous. You know, it's the thing with all of these relocation spells we're gonna see in a replay here coming up. Ori finds the angle to jump in, gets a toss back, isolates the gyrocopter, and they make short work of the secondary light. Swap wasn't great from Lace to save. They get the glimpse back, and it just falls apart. They clump up too hard on Na'Vi. And Aster's high ground, as difficult as it is to pull off, they do manage to get it to work there.
That's a very, very nice team fight from Aster. Great high ground defense, and Ori, like you mentioned, John, with the tossbacks, really setting up for his team. Na'Vi, there's still 2 racks up, John, but you've got to be careful. That net worth gap suddenly in the way of Aster, and well, go to plus. Not looking too healthy right now for them, but they might at least find a disruptor, and they will. You see the graph, Jonathan? It's taken a very sharp bit the way of Aster all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's quite the roller coaster we're seeing here. It's still in Navi's favor, despite all of that. Still have a 63% chance winning. They're 2 racks ahead. They just have to knock this last racks down for the mega creeps, and they will try again without Aegis. Risky. They really have to be disciplined about that toss from Ori that can come out here.
He's gonna try one more time, but Ori, he's in. Nice swap out this time from Lace, not allowing the toss back as no one. Jump in on the punt, they'll lose Lace. On the first line at least. He has the remnant though, swapping back in the nade. The big stun out, he caught 2 of them. Solo with a hook shot now. A nice toss away from Ori, still Monet being trapped up and stunned up constantly is gonna go down. He'll buy back. Try one last time here, Aster. Na'Vi not backing off. They'll go right after that T3 bottom tower. They even done the Night Stalker from the tree line, but they completely ignore XXS. They just want the objectives. Swap out again from Lace. Onto the TA, but Monet is still fine. Ijun again. A man of business, Jonathan. Only objectives for him. No one, however. He goes in with the Dream Coil, but Ijun is completely ignoring them. In fact, never mind. Now with the magic missiles flying out, he can get the damage out. Ori's gone, Baboka's gone, and Monet, he's probably gone as well. Before the GG and Aster will drop their first game of the group stage here to Na'Vi. I'll tell you what, John, Na'Vi, game 1, they look real rough. Game 2, they go back to their comfort with the draft. With the Gyro IO, it always seems to work out for this team.
They fall back to some great comfort here in Na'Vi, and they play an extremely good game. They're very disciplined. They knew when to get aggressive with the relocates. They came out with really much stronger lanes than I think Aster expected to deal with. Aster, for their part, they draft into that Enigma